Good morning, students. Today we are going to start the first chapter of biology, class 10th, life processes. So let us first try to define the term life processes. The different mechanisms which governs the life of an organism are known as life processes. For example, digestion, respiration, transportation, and excretion. If we talk in totality, what is life process? These are the different processes which are going in your body, which actually takes hold of your life. So your life is impossible without any of these life processes, that is digestion, respiration, transportation, or excretion. So if any of the process blocks, definitely it will going to hamper the life also. So let us discuss step by step about the different processes. So let's start with the nutrition first, which is the actual step through which we are going to enter into the details of other subtopics. Nutrition, the process of intake of nutrients and its utilization by an organism in various biological activities. Now, children, you know that the basic requirements of your body is food, water, oxygen. So these are the basic things which you need for survival, that is food, water, and oxygen. So food is the first requirement because food is a source of energy. So different organisms, they have different modes of capturing food from the nature. Some organisms, they prepare their own food. Some organisms, they are dependent on other organisms for their food, and this way they have a different method of obtaining their food from the nature and their utilization. So that overall thing is known as nutrition. This nutrition includes the method by which the organism, or the mode by which an organism is capturing its food or obtaining its food from nature, and then how that is utilized in the body. That whole in total is known as nutrition, and that nutrition or that food is utilized for controlling different biological activities. So depending upon the different modes of nutrition, we have different types of nutrition. First is autotrophic mode of nutrition. Now, in autotrophic mode of nutrition, as the word itself is suggesting, auto means self and trophic means food or energy. So, when any organism prepare its food itself, is known as autotrophic mode of nutrition. Kind of nutrition in which organism prepare their own organic food with the help of inorganic raw materials. Now you know that green plants, they make their food. Green plants, they prepare their food with the help of some inorganic inorganic substances like carbon dioxide, water, and then they prepare carbohydrates, which is a organic form of food, that is carbon containing. So such mode of nutrition in which the organism is preparing its own food with the help of inorganic materials is known as autotrophic mode of nutrition. On the other hand, we have heterotrophic mode of nutrition. Now, in heterotrophic mode of nutrition, it is a kind of nutrition in which organism derive energy from intake and digestion of organic substances prepared by autotrophs. Now, whatever organic substances being prepared by autotroph green plant, that substances are utilized by the other organisms, and it is known as heterotrophic mode of nutrition. Now, if we try to analyze the term heterotrophic, hetero means other and trophic means food. So, when an organism is dependent on some other organism for its food, then we call it heterotrophic mode of nutrition. So, you know that cows, they are dependent on green plants for food, lions and tigers, they are dependent on herbivores for their food. Parasites are dependent on host organisms for their food. Saprophytes, they feed on dead and decaying organic matter for their food. So in all these examples, what we are seeing, that one organism is dependent on some other organism for obtaining its nutrition. So all these are known as all this is known as heterotrophic mode of nutrition. Now, there are different types of ways by which one organism can derive its food from other organisms. So, it comes in the category types of heterotrophic nutrition. Now, one is saprophytic nutrition. Now, what is saprophytic nutrition? It is a kind of nutrition in which organism derive nutrients from dead and decaying organic matter. Example, rotten leaves, rotten bread, dead animals, etc. So, there are many organisms which feed on dead and decaying organic material, like for example, you know, when stale chapatis or stale food or rotten leaves, the leaves which fall down from the tree and then it starts getting rotten. So there are some microorganisms which feed on that dead organic matter and tries to consume its nutrition from there. So this is saprophytic mode of nutrition. Second is parasitic mode of nutrition. If you talk of parasitic mode of nutrition, here it is a type of nutrition. It is a kind of nutrition in which organisms derive their nutrients from other living organisms. Now, there are certain organisms which derive their food from the body of other organism. The body of other organism should be living. Now, if you try to distinguish between saprophytic and parasitic, what you are seeing the difference? In this case, the organism is dependent on dead and decaying organic matter. Dead means the organism is not living, and decaying means the matter is becoming decomposed. So matter is getting decomposed as well as into the soil, and the matter is non-living as well. So there are certain organisms which feed on these dead and decaying organic matter. So it is known as saprophytic mode of nutrition. Now next is whereas in case of parasitic mode of nutrition, the one organism is dependent on the for the food on other organism, but the thing is that other organism is also living. So in this case, one organism is dependent on other, but the other material is dead and decaying. In this also, one organism is dependent on other for food, but the other organism has to be living organism. So this type of nutrition is known as parasitic mode of nutrition. So based on the different modes of nutrition, we have different organisms, like for example, autotroph. Autotrophs are those organisms which exhibit autotrophic mode of nutrition, example green plants. Heterotrophs are the organisms which exhibit heterotrophic mode of nutrition, example cow. Green plants, you know that they prepare their own food with the help of inorganic raw material. Now since they are preparing their own food with the help of inorganic raw material, so they are autotrophs. Auto means self, troph means food, so they're preparing the food themselves. There is some mechanism inside their body which is letting the food prepared itself. They are not dependent on some other creature or other organism for their food. Yes, definitely they are dependent on inorganic raw materials. But in case of heterotrophs, they are dependent on some other organism for its food, and such type of organisms which exhibit heterotrophic mode of nutrition are heterotroph. Like for example, I said cow. Now you know cow cannot make its own food. Cow has to depend on some other living organism for its food, and in case of cow, it is green plants on which it's feed directly. Beside cow, there are other organisms like lion and tiger. Even they are dependent on other organisms for their food. For example, all carnivores, they feed on the flesh of dead flesh of other living organisms or animals. Now next is saprophytes. Now what are saprophytes? They exhibit saprophytic mode of nutrition, example all fungi. You know fungi, they grow on, you must have seen that if you keep some chapati or bread rolled in a wet cloth, and after some day you see that some white cottony structure grows on it. That white cottony structure is basically fungi, and fungi, they are feeding on that dead matter, organic matter, and as well as it is decaying at the same time. Then parasites exhibit parasitic mode of nutrition, example plasmodium. You know plasmodium is a parasitic, it is a malarial parasite, and it causes malaria when it enters into the body of some other organism. So this whole covers your nutrition part, or the starting part of the chapter, life processes. So again, I just recapitulate the whole at a glance. You just have a glance of it. We started with the definition of life processes. The different mechanisms which governs the life of an organism are known as life processes. For example, digestion, respiration, transportation, and excretion. So all these processes together governs the life. If any of the process blocks or get disturbed, the life of an organism gets disturbed, or it may be fatal for the organism also. Then any process is dependent definitely on three important things, that is food, oxygen, and water. So if we talk of food, which is the ultimate source of energy for the organism, we start with the topic nutrition, where we talk about the different modes by which the organism obtain its nutrients from the nature and utilizes in a different manner. Okay, like for example, autotrophs, they follow autotrophic mode of nutrition. In autotrophic mode of nutrition, they are preparing their own food organic food with the help of inorganic raw materials. Organic, when we say the word organic, it means carbon containing. And when we talk of heterotrophic mode of nutrition, one organism is dependent on other organism for its nutrition. So such type of nutritions are autotrophic and heterotrophic respectively. In heterotrophic, when I said heterotrophic mode of nutrition is the one in which one organism is dependent on other organism for its food. So it means there can be two different ways by which one organism is dependent on other organism for its food. One is saprophytic mode of nutrition kind of a way, and second parasitic nutrition kind of a way. In saprophytic, the organism, it feeds derive its nutrients or feeds on dead and decaying organic matter. Again, when I say organic matter, it means it is coming from the living world, and secondly, it has a good amount of carbon. So saprophytes are those which feed on dead and decaying organic matter like rotten leaves, rotten bread, and dead animals and all. For example, fungi, which I talked here. So they are known as saprophytes. Whereas in parasitic nutrition, the organism is deriving its nutrients from the other living organisms. Means the other organism from which one organism is obtaining its nutrition, the other organism is also living. Okay, that like for example, you must have seen ticks and lice and bed bugs. So these are also the type of parasites which derive their nutrition by sucking blood from other living organisms' body. So depending upon the mode of nutrition, the organisms can be autotrophs, they can be heterotrophs, they can be saprophytes, they can be parasites. Autotrophs, they exhibit autotrophic mode of nutrition. All green plants come under this category. Heterotrophs are they exhibit heterotrophic mode of nutrition. Cow, buffaloes, deer, a tiger, lion, jackals, all these organisms which are dependent on the other organism for its food. So they are heterotrophs. If you try to categorize the heterotrophs, those organisms which are directly feeding green plants, they are herbivores. But those organisms which are eating the flesh of some other animals, they are carnivores. Okay, and when we talk of saprophytes are the fungi which are dependent on dead and decaying organic matter, and parasites are those like plasmodium, which is dependent on the other living organism for its food. So here we end up with the introduction part of the life process, that is nutrition. In the next video, we're going to talk about the next part of the chapter, that is we will going to discuss these nutritions in much detail. First, we will going to start with the autotrophic mode of nutrition in detail, where we will going to discuss about photosynthesis, and then with heterotrophic mode of nutrition, where we are going to talk about nutrition in amoeba and nutrition in human beings, and how the food is being utilized in them. Thank you.